Over the past few years, I've become really interested in topics like minimalism or decluttering, and Swedish death cleaning kind of fits into that same category of things. The idea behind Swedish death cleaning is that whenever you die, you leave behind a bunch of things. Dying sucks, dying is hard on everyone around you, and you don't want to make things harder on those loved ones by making them clean up your crap and clean up your mess. So the idea behind Swedish death cleaning is essentially just that you're supposed to take a look at everything around you, take a look at your objects, at your belongings, and figure out what you actually want to keep. The idea is that before you die, you should get rid of anything you have that's useless or non-valuable that you don't want your friends and family to have to deal with. And so it's a really simple concept, and people have written books on the subject. And I'm not gonna lie, I haven't read those books because I don't really know how you can fill an entire volume up with ideas about this concept unless you're just telling stories. But really, it is that basic. It's just this idea that you're going to die and you're gonna leave crap behind, and you don't want your death to be any more traumatic than it has to be. And I would wager that more than anyone else, this is a concept that will resonate with you if you have had to clean out someone's house after they've died. I'll share a couple of quick experiences. So my grandpa died like 4 or 5 years ago, and he just had a bunch of crap. And it was during the pandemic that he passed away, and so that made everything a lot harder than it had to be. But really, he just left behind a bunch of crap. He just left behind like a bunch of books, he left behind like broken furniture. And there are certainly a lot of things that were valuable to my family, you know, like my grandfather left behind a bunch of photos. But really, there was just a bunch of crap, and so not only did my family have to deal with the funeral, we also had to deal with figuring out what to do with all of these belongings. More recently, within the last year, we've had a couple other people pass away in our family, and one of the people was a hoarder. And as you might expect, going through a hoarder's house is kind of terrible because there's just crap. And when I say there's crap, I just mean there's garbage. There's stuff that was never thrown out. My mom is an artist, and so she was going through this person's art supplies, and she was finding empty cans of spray paint. She was finding paintbrushes that had been worn down to the, you know, the metal piece. I don't know what that's called, but there were no brushes on the brush. And in the rooms that we were going through, they were so packed full of garbage that you could barely step through them. So the entire concept behind Swedish death cleaning is it's like, hey, what if there was a way to avoid this? Basically, the question posed by Swedish death cleaning is just, what if instead of having people clean out your house after you died, what if you just cleaned up your space now? And so you do this act, you clean up to help those after you, but also it just helps you now. No one likes having crap around them. If something's useless or it doesn't mean anything to you, then why bother keeping it? And I do think that this is very much a problem for people, just for everyone. We as individuals often attach sentimental value to things, but other people don't always attach the same value to them. Just because an object means a lot to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will mean anything to those who come after. A lot of meaning discussed. And so as I'm talking about this concept of Swedish death cleaning, I'm not just saying to throw everything out. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying to throw a lot of stuff out. Like if you know, you just have crap, throw it out. If you have books you don't want to read, then get rid of them. If you own things or belongings that are just taking up space, then I can guarantee that if you get rid of them in any capacity really, and you free up that space, then you not only free up that space physically, you also free it up mentally, because then you don't have that mental drain. I think it just feels good to have a nice clean space. I think it feels good to know that everything you own has a purpose, you know, and that kind of goes back to the idea of minimalism. And I'm not a minimalist by any stretch of the imagination. I own far too many t-shirts to be called that. And also I just own too many books. I just own too much crap, you know. Like there are people who are minimalists and they own literally like 23 objects or whatever. And I think that's kind of overboard and quite frankly, it's unrealistic for people who are just living. So I don't think that extreme minimalism works for most people, honestly. It certainly doesn't work for me. But I think there's a lot of value to questioning why you own certain things. And if you don't have a good reason for owning them, if you just own them because you were given something as a gift, or you one time cared about something, maybe it's time to pass it on, maybe it's time to get rid of it. And so I am saying to get rid of things, but another point I wanted to address is that I don't think you should be precious with the things that you own. As I was saying, there are a lot of people I know who place sentimental value on certain things. There are people I know who hold on to certain things thinking that one day they will be worth something. You see this a lot in the comic book space, particularly with Western comics, where there's this entire culture of collection built up around it. It's completely normal to buy individual issues of a comic and then to bag and board it. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. You get the individual issue, you put a cardboard board behind it, and then you slip it into a plastic bag and you seal it. And that protects the comic and it keeps it safe. But the problem with that is that also it makes it harder to read, it makes it harder to engage with. Because I can just walk over to one of my bookshelves and just grab a book and start flipping through it. But if you want to do the same thing with comics, it's hard to do that. And I do have this belief that if you have something that has a use, then it's meant to be used. I think that if you have books, they're meant to be read. I think if you have records, they're meant to be played. I think if you have clothes, they're meant to be worn. And there's that preciousness that extends to comic books, but it also extends to action figures, where people don't like taking the action figures out of the plastic packaging because it devalues them. And that's the reason why people bag and board their comics, is to keep them safe and protect them. A lot of people see it as an investment. There was a post I saw some time ago, and I don't remember what the author was working as, but this person said that they would constantly run into people who like had someone's fine china after they'd passed, and they were like, here, this doesn't mean anything, I want to sell it and get rid of it. Basically, the idea is that someone would hold on to certain objects their entire life, believing that they had value, and then they would die never having used the objects, and then their relatives would just go and sell the objects. And it's kind of sad, but that's the way the world works, because as I was saying, people don't derive meaning and value from the same things. Just because something means a lot to me doesn't necessarily mean it will mean a lot to you. Just because I have a bunch of Nine Inch Nails records, that doesn't mean that as soon as I die, they won't be immediately sold. Just because I love Queens of the Stone Age doesn't necessarily mean that the person who comes after me is going to love Queens of the Stone Age and will want to retain my t-shirts. So basically with Swedish death cleaning, I just wanted to share this idea that you shouldn't let your objects own you, I guess. I guess that's really what I'm saying. If you have books, read them. If you have records, play them. If you have fancy plates, use them. If you have money, then you might as well spend it before you die. And when I say that, I don't mean to promote consumerism necessarily, but rather you can't take money with you whenever you die, so you might as well use it, is my thinking. I mean, if you're in a position to splurge on something and you can genuinely afford it at the time, then might as well. But don't take that as me saying to get into debt or anything like that, because I'm not. But we're getting off topic. We're getting away from the original point, which is just that Swedish death cleaning is really cool. So I encourage you to take a look at your belongings and really think long and hard about the things you own and how much they mean to you. Some things mean a lot to you, and you will want to keep them until the very day you die. But then other things you just kind of hang on to just because, and there's no reason to it. And if you're precious with certain things, then ask yourself the question, why? I don't really believe in keeping things behind glass boxes and, protecting them all your life. Certainly, I'm not saying to destroy your things. I'm not saying to treat your objects and belongings harshly. But what I am saying is that ultimately cars are made to be driven. Money is made to be spent. Food is made to be eaten. Drinks are made to be drunk. I think it's drunk. Hopefully no one watching this video dies anytime soon, but I wish you the best. And yeah, these are my thoughts on Swedish death cleaning. If you're new here, hello, my name's Noah. I do videos on random bullcrap. Sometimes I'll talk about literature or albums or games or just ideas. I do what I want, and that's kind of my thing. The reason this channel is named my name instead of Noah's Gaming Fun or some bullcrap like that is because I wanted to be able to talk about anything. And so by naming the channel after myself, I believe that anything I'm interested in is fair game. So no one really knows what I'm going to do next, least of all myself. So thank you for watching, have a nice night, and goodbye.